Good afternoon from Prime Ag here in southeast Wisconsin. Today is a rainy day, and as we're sitting here in the rain and we had a few storms pass by, we just thought it'd be a good time to go over hail insurance and how it fits into your risk management. The first thing that we're going to show you here is a map of the US, and this is given to us through FEMA. What this is showing us is where the higher risk areas are for insurance compared to lower risk. When you look at the dark red boxes, those are the areas where the higher risk, and as you go out to the blue boxes, those are a lot lower risk, and even into the gray area where there's hardly any risk at all. As you can see, and you get to the central part of the country into Nebraska, parts of the Dakotas, and into Minnesota. It's not a matter if it's going to hail, it's going to be where it's going to hail. So as we move on, there's three different types of hail insurance that we look into. You have basic, deductible, and companion. The basic hail policy would be a policy that covers any loss when your loss is greater than 0%. So it starts paying you at a 1% loss. When you look at the deductible side of it, whether it be a 5% or 10% or even higher deductible, when you look at DXS5, for example, that's a 5% deductible. The losses are not paid until you have a greater than 5% loss. Then the final thing that we look at is companion hail. This is insurance that's buying hail for a narrow gap above your crop insurance level. So this is one for the areas where the premiums are very high, just to help protect some of the top end of your loss, if it'd be based on hail. The things that hail covers, of course, the number one thing it covers is hail. And then after hail, it also gives you some fire protection, some first transit coverage, and there's also some other things that are covered under this. But you need to remember that hail is a private product. So each company has their own things that are covered under it. So when discussing private products like hail, please make sure you know and understand what is covered between you and your agent. When you look at hail, there's also some endorsements that you can look into. The major endorsements that we look into or that you can look into is Green Snap, Wind, and Extra Harvest. So each of these provide extra coverage, whether it's based off of wind, Green Snap, and then also if you have extra harvest costs based off of Green Snap or wind insurance. These are good insurance policies to put on for those who are in areas where wind can be an issue and can cause lots of damage. As we look at the final thoughts on the hail insurance, the biggest thing we have to remember is, we just want extra protection, in case something happens. With hail, it can be an event where, it doesn't hail at your own farm, but a farm 5 miles down the road can get a lot of damage. With a lot of producers now taking enterprise units, we just feel hail is very, very important part of the risk management to add to it. Because, like I said before here, if you have one farm hail out, that could be zero. The rest of your farms on an enterprise unit can make up for that loss, and then you would not get paid for the hail damage on that one field. That's the one nice thing about hail. It's not based off of a whole unit, your whole enterprise unit. It's based off of field by field. And the one thing that we do notice with hail seems to be more like isolated incidents and not over wide areas, even though over wide areas it can happen. The last thing we want to do is, with the hail insurance, we just things that gives you peace of mind. When you're sitting in the house and you're looking at the radar when you need rain, and you see, the dark reds or the purples or the newsman calling for, high winds or hail, this just helps you give a peace of mind knowing that the crop that you have out there is protected. With the high dollars of these crops putting in, hail can be a very good risk management tool. As always, if you have any questions on the insurance, don't be afraid to give us a call in the office. We'd be happy to walk you through, what would be a good strategy for you to use on your hail insurance. Have a great day.